You ever get that weird feeling you're being watched? That goosebump-inducing chill running down your spine when you're just trying to enjoy a quiet evening in your own backyard? I brushed it off until I found the camera. Hidden, wired, pointing straight at my patio where my daughter plays. That's when I realized this wasn't just creepy, it was criminal. And the people behind it? They lived just 2 doors down. It started with a flicker, a tiny reflection on my fence, just past the grill. At first, I thought it was sunlight bouncing off a wind chime or maybe a spider web catching light, but the more I stared at it, the more it stared back, steady, silent, cold. I stepped off the patio and moved closer, shielding my eyes from the sun. That's when I saw it. A small black dot nestled just under a wood knot on my fence, perfectly round, perfectly aimed, right at our backyard seating area, where I drink my morning coffee, where my wife does yoga, where my 10-year-old daughter runs through sprinklers in her swimsuit. It was a camera, a tiny wireless motion-sensing spy cam, hidden in my own fence. I didn't panic. I didn't even yank it out right away. I just stared at it for a full minute, then slowly walked back inside. My brain was moving 1,000 miles an hour, trying to catch up with the reality I was standing in. Who would do this? And why? I live in a quiet HOA neighborhood. Vinyl siding, trimmed lawns, neighborly smiles, and passive-aggressive Facebook groups. We have the usual suspects. Nosy old folks, loud kids, the couple who never waves. But this was a violation, a gross, calculated invasion of privacy. I told my wife, Sarah. She thought I was joking until I took her outside and pointed at the lens. I had never seen her face drain like that. "That's pointed straight at our deck," she whispered. "Exactly." I wanted to rip it out, smash it, set it on fire. But I knew better. We needed proof, not just of the camera, but of who put it there. So I left it untouched. And instead, I installed my own hidden trail cam, up in the trees across the yard, angled right at that section of the fence. Then we waited. A week of silence. The waiting was the hardest part. For 6 days I came home from work and checked the footage. Nothing. No one touched the camera. No one came near the fence. Sarah started thinking maybe it was old. Maybe someone installed it before we moved in. Maybe it was disconnected. But I wasn't convinced. And on the 7th day, we got them. At 2:43 a.m., a figure appeared on my trail cam footage. Flashlight off, hoodie up. He moved with practiced steps, heading straight for the fence. He knelt down, opened the fence panel from his side, yes, his side, and adjusted the spy cam. Then he checked something on his phone and walked back into his backyard like it was just another night. I zoomed in. It was my neighbor, Nick Bowman. I should have known. Nick and Rachel Bowman. They moved in about 18 months ago. Early 30s, no kids, dual income, always on the move. Rachel is the friendly type, over-friendly actually. She always stopped to chat when I was mowing or taking the trash out. Nick, on the other hand, barely made eye contact, always seemed twitchy, like he was listening to some conversation the rest of us weren't invited to. But they were harmless, or so I thought. Sarah was furious. I was ready to march over and confront them, but she stopped me. "No, we do this smart," she said. "They crossed the line. Let's make sure they regret it." She was right. We already had footage of Nick adjusting the camera, but now I wanted everything. When it was installed, where it was streaming to, what else they might have recorded. So I took a screwdriver, carefully removed the hidden cam, and brought it inside to inspect. What I found was sickening. The device had a micro SD card slot, and the card was full. I didn't expect to find much, maybe a few clips of us barbecuing or sitting outside. But when I opened the first file, my blood went cold. The first clip was dated 7 weeks ago. It showed Sarah doing yoga in the morning, alone in tight workout clothes. The second clip was my daughter, playing with a water hose in her bathing suit. Then me, shirtless, grilling on a Saturday. Clip after clip, labeled by date and time. Somebody had been watching us for nearly 2 months. I felt sick, but it got worse. There was one folder labeled Best Angles. I didn't open it. Not yet. Instead, I backed up the card, saved the footage on a secure drive, and drove straight to the local police department. The police response: I met with Officer Langley, who immediately took the matter seriously. Once I showed him the footage and the recorded clip of Nick adjusting the camera, he nodded and said, "This isn't just creepy. This is felony-level voyeurism." He asked if I wanted to press charges. I didn't hesitate. Yes, he explained they'd need to issue a warrant to search the Bowman's property, and that could take a couple of days. But with what I'd given them, it was just a matter of paperwork. That was the beginning of the end for Nick and Rachel. But I didn't stop there. See, in HOA neighborhoods like ours, justice isn't just about court dates. It's about reputation. It's about the social circle, the mom's wine nights, the dog-walking dads, the people who don't want drama, but... So while the police were working behind the scenes, I took a different route. I contacted a local news outlet anonymously. I provided redacted footage, blurred faces, timestamps, and context. I didn't reveal names. I didn't have to. They were happy to run the story under a headline that read, "Local family discovers hidden camera pointed at their backyard. Police investigating suburban privacy. 5. Violation." It aired 3 nights later, just as the warrant came through. The raid. The Bowman's house lit up at 6:15 a.m. 3 cruisers, a warrant in hand, officers knocking on their door, neighbors peeking through curtains, Rachel crying, Nick being cuffed on his own porch in socks and a t-shirt. It was poetic. And the cherry on top? Their Ring cam caught the whole thing. I downloaded it. I may or may not have emailed it to the HOA board anonymously. The next morning, the buzz around the neighborhood wasn't about kids playing or lawns getting mowed. It was about Nick. Apparently, I wasn't the only one who'd been having problems. I talked to 3 neighbors before noon, and they all shared eerily similar stories. One neighbor, Lisa, said she had received a fine for leaving her garbage bins out 15 minutes past the supposed HOA rule, a rule she later found didn't even exist in our HOA charter. Another neighbor, Raj, said he caught Nick taking photos of his backyard through the fence and leaving a noise complaint on his door, even though Raj had been out of town that weekend. And yet no one had ever seen Nick at an official HOA meeting. In fact, no one had any idea when or how he even got on the HOA board, or if he was even on it at all. That night, I went through my security camera footage. I'd recently installed a doorbell cam and a couple of motion detectors around the yard. I hadn't expected to find anything, but around 2:13 a.m., there it was, a tall figure in a black hoodie, crouching by my porch, fiddling with the lockbox where packages were left. I zoomed in. The camera wasn't the highest quality, but the face was unmistakable. Nick, the same smug face that had yelled about weeds and gutters, was now stealing deliveries in the middle of the night, and this time he had taken a package that wasn't even mine. It was medication for my elderly Nay. Bore, Ms. Thompson. That changed everything. Now, it wasn't just annoying fake citations or power trips. It was theft, and not just theft, but something that could endanger someone's health. I had to do something. The next day, I printed out screenshots from the footage and slipped them into a manila folder. I wasn't going to call the police just yet, not without giving him a chance to explain himself. Maybe I'd catch him off guard. Maybe he'd even confess. So I did something bold. I wrote up a fake letter, one that looked like an official HOA notice, and posted it on the community board near the park where people walked their dogs. It read, "Emergency HOA meeting. Tonight, 7 p.m. Due to multiple reports of unauthorized activity by HOA enforcers, all homeowners are strongly encouraged to attend. Attendance mandatory for all current board members and representatives. Location, Pavilion 3, Riverside Park." I had no authority to call an HOA meeting, but neither did Nick, and that hadn't stopped him. At 7 p.m. sharp, about 20 neighbors showed up. They brought folding chairs, dogs on leashes, even popcorn. The air buzzed with curiosity, and at 7:08 p.m., Nick walked in, wearing, I kid you not, a black polo with HOA security printed in white block letters across the chest, like he was some kind of mall cop from a sitcom. He looked surprised to see everyone gathered, a little rattled. "Who called this meeting?" he demanded. "I did," I said, standing up and holding the manila folder under my arm. "We need to discuss something important." His eyes narrowed. "You don't have the right to—" "I don't," I said, pulling out the screenshots. "Do you have the right to steal packages at 2 a.m.? That shut him up. Everyone leaned in as I passed the images around. Murmurs spread through the crowd. "That's him," Lisa whispered. "I told you it wasn't squirrels," Raj added. Nick tried to speak. "These images are manipulated. This is slander." Ms. Thompson, frail but sharp as ever, stood up and looked Nick dead in the eye. "You stole my heart medication," she said. "I had to miss 2 doses waiting for a replacement. My doctor was furious." Nick's jaw clenched. "I didn't steal anything. Maybe you misplaced it." Now the crowd turned. "You're done, Nick," someone muttered, and that's when Nick made his biggest mistake of all. He threatened to fine everyone at the meeting for unauthorized use of HOA property. That's right. He told a group of homeowners standing in a public park that they were violating rules he had invented, but it was too late. I had already sent a copy of the footage and photos to the real HOA board president, a woman named Carla who had recently been overseas caring for a sick relative. When she saw the email, she responded instantly. "That man has never been on our board. He has absolutely no authority." And she CC'd the neighborhood group email with that message. Within seconds, phones around the pavilion buzzed. The truth spread like wildfire. Nick froze. His hands went up as if surrendering. "All right," he said, trying to laugh it off. "Let's not get dramatic. Maybe I took my role a little too seriously." But no one was laughing. I stood in front of him and said calmly, "You're going to return everything you stole. You're going to stop harassing people, and you're going to leave this community alone, or we will press charges." He didn't respond, but he didn't have to. His face said it all. Defeat. Later that night, I got a knock on the door. It was Nick, alone. No fake badge, no clipboard, just a plain manila envelope in hand. "I came to return this," he said quietly, handing over Ms. Thompson's meds. "They were in my garage. I took them silently. And I'm sorry. I was just trying to feel important. After my wife left, things have been rough. I didn't mean to." I held up a hand. "Save it. I don't need an apology. Just stay away from people's homes." He nodded and walked away into the night. The next morning, a new notice was up on the community board. This one had Carla's name and official HOA seal. Effective immediately. Any impersonation of HOA staff or enforcement will be prosecuted. Residents are encouraged to report any suspicious activity. Peace returned to the neighborhood. No more bogus tickets. No more nighttime thefts. Nick moved out 2 weeks later. And as for me, well, let's just say my new doorbell camera came with night vision and facial recognition, just in case. You'd think after getting publicly exposed, humiliated, and essentially evicted by the entire neighborhood, Nick would have left quietly. But no. Some people just don't know when they've lost. About a week after that confrontation at the park, things started feeling off again. Not in the same way. There were no fake citations, no clipboard inspections, but something was brewing. You could feel it. First, the power went out for a few homes on our street, not the whole block. Just 5 houses, including mine and Ms. Thompson's. The utility company said someone had tampered with the external breaker boxes. They suspected a vandal. Then, garbage bins started going missing, only to show up a few days later tipped over or dumped in odd places, like in the creek behind the neighborhood or near the golf course parking lot. It felt childish, petty, and it had Nick written all over it. But we didn't have proof until one night, just before his move-out date, Nick made his final, desperate move. It was around 1:30 a.m. when my phone buzzed. Motion detected, backyard camera. I was already half awake. Something had been keeping me on edge for days. I opened the live feed and froze. There he was, Nick, dressed in black again, wearing gloves this time, moving through the shadows in my backyard, carrying what looked like a gas can. My heart pounded. I grabbed my PH-1 and called 911 immediately, whispering to the dispatcher. She told me to stay calm, stay inside, and officers were en route. But here's the thing. I wasn't about to wait. Not after everything. I had a legal concealed carry. I kept it locked in a biometric safe near the front door. I unlocked it, stepped outside quietly, and came around the side of the house, staying low, just behind the hedges. That's when I saw what he was doing. Nick had poured gasoline along the edge of my fence and was crouching to light something. This wasn't about power anymore, or pride. This man was about to set my property on fire. That's when I stepped forward, gun at my side but visible, and shouted, "Step away from the fence. Hands where I can see them." He spun around, eyes wide like a deer in headlights. He froze, and for a second I think we both realized just how far things had gone. "You're insane," I said. "This is arson. You're done, Nick." "I wasn't going to light it," he barked. "I was just trying to scare you. By dousing my fence in gasoline? You call that a prank?" At that moment, red and blue lights lit up the night as 2 police cruisers pulled into my driveway. The officers leapt out, guns drawn, and ordered Nick to the ground. He dropped to his knees, trembling, muttering something about making a point and proving a lesson. They cuffed him right there on my lawn. The aftermath? Oh, it was poetic. Nick was charged with attempted arson, trespassing, and vandalism. Since he had no official position with the HOA and had impersonated a board member, he also faced charges of fraud and impersonation. Turns out, this wasn't even his first rodeo. When the police ran his background, they found out he'd pulled something similar at a previous neighborhood in another state, but had skipped town before anyone could press charges. He had moved here, like Idlo, and slowly built up his fake authority again until someone finally stood up to him. And that someone was me. The neighborhood rallied after that. The real HOA held a town meeting and voted unanimously to add new security cameras, motion lights, and a verification system for any future board communications. Ms. Thompson even got a new service dog, a gift from the community. As for me, well, I became something of a local hero. People waved when I walked my dog. I started getting invited to cookouts, birthday parties, even HOA planning sessions. Not because I wanted power, I'd had enough of that, but because people trusted me now, because I didn't back down, because I caught a criminal who thought he could hide behind a fake badge and a clipboard. But the best part? The house Nick had been renting was foreclosed by the landlord after the scandal and was later bought by a quiet, kind, retired couple who had zero tolerance for nonsense. Their first act? They installed a giant sign out front that read, "No HOAs, no hassle, no Nick." And just like that, the ghost of our fake HOA cop finally disappeared for good. Moral of the story: if someone starts inventing rules, flashing fake authority, and stealing more than just your peace of mind, don't wait. Stand up. Because sometimes the only thing more dangerous than a thief is a bored man with a clipboard and a craving for control. And if you're lucky, he'll end up exactly where Nick did, flat on his face, in handcuffs, in front of the people he tried to rule.